Previously on Chicken Police.
Hobart Ibn Wessler has a relative who happens to be a resident at an insane asylum. The band is very likely from there.
Wait, a relative? What kind of relative?
Yeah. You don't know? I thought you were the detectives. Anyway, Ibn Wessler has a twin brother, Albert.
Where is he?
No idea, Marty.
The smell of all that's furry. I'll never get used to it.
Well, reptiles have a disgusting body odor, Marty, but they feel exactly the same about us.
Exactly. Great wild ones, you scared the hell out of me.
I already sensed your arrival from afar. You know, snakes have a different sense of smell, and birds used to be our prey once upon a time.
Well,
Alright, Marty, get your guns.
luckily,
I don't trust this guy.
Civilized times.
Lucky. Please take a seat. How can I help you, gentlemen?
Well, before I do that, I'm going to look around your room.
Why do you have bars on your windows?
Because it's a room like all the others, and I'm just an animal too, like all our residents.
Okay,
There's
suspicious.
a significant difference of you being a doctor and not a patient. Am I right?
It's not as big of a difference as you'd think.
Okay, even more suspicious.
Your office is rather Puritan. Simple, I mean.
Ain't that the truth?
Well, yes. I can't let my mind wander from my work. I only keep what's essential in my office.
I see. That makes sense.
This one be the same walls as...
Is this cell like the others?
I would rather call it a room. But yes, it's like all the others.
What if he's not actually a doctor and he's actually a resident who convinced everybody he was a doctor?
An isle of reason in a sea of insanity.
Insanity is such a strong word, and it's mostly an abstract idea. Where does insanity start, and how long is one not insane? Interesting question.
We're all insane in our own little way.
Normal? Or are you? Maybe neither of us.
You see, that's something I think about a lot nowadays.
If you like, I can give you an appointment.
Oh, this is your chance, Sonny. Don't miss it. We're already here.
Marty, clock.
Well, I have been meaning to check in for some time now.
A snake. I can't help it, but they make my feathers stand on end.
To be honest, gentlemen, your visit is anything but a surprise. I could even say I was expecting it.
Marty, the guns!
Please forgive me. I have the bad habit of immediately getting into the middle of things. How very rude of me. My name is Dr. Sessuous Quetzalcoatl, but most call me Dr. Quetzal to keep it simple.
The name is Sam.
Why did I know you would be a snake before I came up these stairs?
Chicken from
the predatory division of the Clawville Police Department. Your fame is one step ahead of you.
Damn it, fame.
Used to it.
Always spoiling the ending.
We have some questions about one of your patients, if you don't mind. We'd like to talk to him, if that's possible.
Please be specific, detective.
Look, Doctor, we're too tired to play cat and mouse. Not that snake and chicken sounds any better.
Very funny, I must say. Just what I expected from you two detectives.
We know you know it's about Albert Wessler, Ibn Wessler's secret twin. Ever since we've said his name, all the doors have miraculously opened.
It's like we're genies.
All a bullseye.
Well, yes. Why should I deny it? We're talking about a rather illustrious patient here, who's also a very particular medical case.
Now, that's much more interesting. So, are you willing to talk about him?
Because Albert, regrettably,
Don't you dare look at your watch. I've got all the time in the world.
and you are police detectives, I have no reason not to talk to you. Of course, I'm at your service. But you must understand, I can't disclose information about my patients.
Not even if it's a matter of life.
Pretty sure you
and
can if it's the cops.
Everything's a matter of life and death in here.
We might need a warrant, though.
This is a hospital, even if it's primarily for the mind, not the body.
Still, I'd like to give the impossible a try.
Please, detective, just do your job, and I'll do mine.
How long was Albert a resident of the institution?
300 years.
His first symptoms surfaced in his teens: depression, panic attacks, and schizophrenia.
Was he brought here immediately after the first signs that something wasn't right?
You know, the biggest problem with an opinion on insanity is that animals are ashamed of it. That's the reason our institution stands out here in the middle of nowhere.
Because animals would rather hide what they're afraid to face.
I couldn't have said it better myself.
As far as I know, the Wessler family wasn't exceptionally wealthy.
Indeed, they were rather poor, but we offer our services gratis.
Then how do you sustain yourselves?
By selling organs.
Of the treasury of King Hector III, of course.
I wouldn't have guessed that.
My family and the royal dynasty had always been on good terms, Mr. Santino.
What kind of a place is this exactly? I assume it wasn't built as an insane asylum.
What if it was?
It used to be a mansion. Construction started during the occupation in 622. Then it stood empty for almost a century, until finally it went to the crown of Clawville when Hector's great-grandfather took the throne. The rest is history.
How long have you been working here?
I've worked here for more than 30 years, but it's been in my family's possession for almost 150 years.
Your family doesn't exist.
Correctly, as soon as it went to the crown, it was seized by your family.
That's almost accurate, Mr. Featherland.
What a lovely inheritance.
Tell me about Zawas.
Tell me, Doctor, do you know Madame Zavas?
Just like everybody else, I've heard of her, but I never had the pleasure of meeting her in person. I'm sure she's an interesting case.
Oh, you can be sure about that. I'd gladly get you two together if I had the chance. A spare cell would suit her very much.
Is that so?
She tried to kill me.
Turns out she likes small, narrow, secret places.
Oh, I see.
Kinky?
What a coincidence.
Stop looking at your watch. I'll finish when I'm good and ready.
Dr. Quetzal's a real mystery. But I can turn that to my advantage. I just need to focus on the strangest pieces of the puzzle.
So when did Albert become a resident of your institute?
So when did Albert become a resident of your institute?
Albert and Hobart, or Ibn as you call him, arrived here almost exactly 4 years ago.
Could you describe that day more specifically?
It was a dark and stormy night. The sun was out, which contradicts my first statement.
First week of the year, if I'm not mistaken. It was sleeting that day. Wind was banging incessantly on the windows. The power was going out for short periods of time.
What was your first impression of them?
I already knew the Wessler name. I knew who they were. or at least I knew one of them, Hobart Wessler. He was famous. Gangster, moneylender, celebrity, lover.
And Albert?
He was new to me, an invisible gray ghost. The family had tried to keep his existence a secret.
Convenient.
Because they were ashamed of him, of course, Mr. Featherland. That's how it usually is.
I'm not ashamed of you, Albert. You be you.
He was
Unless you're like a mass murderer or something.
Everything that surrounded him, his eyes were constantly moving, never stopped for a second.
Was he afraid?
I wouldn't say so. It seemed to me that he wanted to move into our institution voluntarily. It looked as if he couldn't wait to be here, alone, locked up in silence and darkness.
Didn't you think
Okay.
as unusual?
Of course I did, but who am I to judge? It was rather special treatment.
What kind of treatment did he give?
What kind of special treatment did Albert get?
You know, if an institution like ours has to accept a Wessler as a guest, there's bound to be some favoritism.
And complete secrecy, I guess.
Yes, but that's the case for all our patients, Mr. Featherland.
Of course. So in what way did he receive more than the others?
Basically, we don't admit anyone into our institution without a complete and thorough prior assessment. In the case of Albert, we put that aside.
So
Well,
you
that doesn't seem
didn't
too
know
safe.
if he had anything wrong with him.
Initially, no. He was more of a guest than a patient.
How did Albert relate to you?
Albert was immensely sophisticated and polite, so much so that his true emotions and thoughts could not be deciphered.
And that's why you thought of him as an exciting case.
That's right, Mr. Featherland.
That's
You're
right.
starting to get to know me in some way.
I'm just doing my job, Doctor.
You and me both.
Okay, this is how we die.
Are you telling me Albert had multiple personalities?
We found out very quickly that there was no other reason for the cause of his seizures. He had a cold and calculating personality who sometimes, especially on stormy days, took the reins over their shared mind.
He had these seizures from the beginning.
Yes, Mr. Featherland, but they started to intensify after Albert left our institution for the first time.
The first time?
Did what? Left the institution? More than once?
Oh, yes, Mr. Featherland. Albert
Does
left
this guy
the
have feet?
institution on several
I just noticed that.
occasions
I think he has
until the
feet.
last time, when he failed
Like
to
human
come
feet.
back.
Huh.
Wetzel's not only very observant, but he's addicted to details. I must focus on that if I want to get closer to the truth. Focus. Addicted to details.
Focus. Addicted. When and why?
When and why did Albert leave the institution for the first time?
It was about 2 years ago. Mr. Hobart Wessler appeared and demanded we let his brother go free. Naturally, we obliged. We had no idea if we'd ever see him again.
But you did.
He returned the same day. Albert was ecstatic. He was unrestrained. I could almost say happy.
That was unusual for him?
I had never seen him like that before, Mr. Featherland. He just smiled and stared at the empty wall for...
Well, that's suspicious.
Did he ever tell you what happened to him outside?
Of course he did. Albert and I had a good relationship. He was working on a painting for his brother.
Was it a painting of a lovely lady cat?
Oh, exactly. So you already knew about that.
We have a piece of that painting.
Wetzel, I've seen it. Has Albert ever talked to you about Natasha?
Only in superlatives, as if he wasn't talking about a real person, but an ethereal being, about an angel or a demon, something that is not of this world.
And what did you think about his fantasies?
We are in an institution where almost everyone is hallucinating on a daily basis, Mr. Featherland. It didn't really bother me, but the fluctuations of positive and negative were more disturbing.
Thanks, Doc. I didn't understand a word, but I think I get the point.
I don't.
So Albert left on many occasions to continue working on the painting.
Exactly, Mr. Featherland. Every time he came back, he was like a different person. But unfortunately, his seizures also multiplied and became more dangerous.
More dangerous.
Albert was hurting himself. And on one occasion, he even tried to hurt me. It was unprecedented. It seemed his confined personality was taking over their shared mind entirely, piece by piece.
Do you think the painting caused it?
Not the painting, Mr. Featherland.
But its subject.
Exactly. He was obsessed, right until that fateful day when he returned to us for the last time.
So he got obsessed with Natasha, switched places with his brother, and then
It
killed
wasn't
Hobart.
who brought his brother back that day, but two of his gorillas. Not literally, I mean. And Albert was in a terrible, terrible state.
What happened to him?
I don't like to talk about that, Mr. Featherland.
It could be vital to the case, Dr. Quetzal. Don't back down.
We need you.
You're right. There's no use turning back now. So, Albert's tongue was torn out, or cut off, I don't know exactly, and he was blinded in one eye, or rather, one of his eyes was missing entirely.
So you're saying Albert
Convenient.
was brought back horribly mutilated.
Yes.
And he couldn't
And
tell
they
you
didn't
what
give
happened.
any explanation as to what had
Hmm.
happened. They simply told me it was some kind of accident.
Dr. Quetzal is cold and professional, but he's also very confused. Maybe it's cruel, but I must exploit his vulnerability if I want to learn everything about Albert. Focus, confused.
Confused and focused. Could you describe the two people?
The two fellas who brought Albert back. Could
Was
you
it a
describe
bobcat
them?
and a ram?
Those two fellas, as you put it, were two remarkably huge, rude men.
Well, it wasn't the
Remember
or the
bobcat, perhaps?
ram.
No, one of them was a tiger, if I remember correctly. He had a rather fresh bump under his left eye, and the other one was a penguin. But
How is a penguin big?
Penguin that big in my entire life.
Did they tell you anything besides it was an
How does a
accident?
They
penguin
didn't say
drag somebody in?
but
They don't
gave
have
an
grips.
obvious signal
Oh, right, they
they
have
had to
people
keep
bodies.
quiet
Never
about
mind.
What happened?
I see. Concentrate, Doctor. What do you think happened to Albert?
I'm sure it was Hobart. He ordered his men to mutilate poor Albert.
But why would he do that?
Maybe Albert saw something he could accidentally reveal.
To whom? The four walls? A couple of crazies? You?
To anyone, Mr. Featherland.
I don't think it's that simple, Doctor. But thank you for your honest opinion.
You're welcome, Detective.
What happened then? How did Albert
What
disappear?
happened then? How did Albert disappear?
A few weeks later, Hobart came to visit Albert one more time. Albert had been in terrible condition by then. We even had to transfer him to another cell, a more safe one.
What did Hobart do during the visit?
He didn't do anything. He just sat and watched his brother, who was in an almost vegetative state by then.
Couldn't you manage to draw anything out of him? You or Hobart?
Nothing. For a while, he was trying to signal something. Perhaps he was too afraid. And most likely his fingers had been broken too, so he couldn't even write.
Wouldn't you know that as a doctor?
Killed Albert.
It's horrible to say it, but I'm sure of it.
How did he disappear in the end? Did someone come for him?
That's what's most eerie about it all, Mr. Featherland. He simply disappeared. His door, which only I had a key for, was open.
Did anyone see anything?
Did the real Albert
We
make a fake key?
Staff, even the patients. He simply vanished off the face of the wilderness. We don't know what happened to him.
Unfortunately, I have a hunch. Thank you, Doctor. You've been a great help.
Oh, well, I'm glad I could be of help. But please, I now must attend to my work.
We understand, Doctor. Thank you.
God, I sucked at that. Alright, see you, Quetzal. Where do I go now? Do I still talk to you?
That's quite shocking information.
I'm back, Quetzal.
I think you understand why we kept it a secret. If it wasn't for Mr. Wessler's demand, we'd never let any of our patients walk freely outside our institution.
Then the accident happened.
Accident? Ha! We didn't believe it, not for a second. After Albert came back to us, horribly mutilated, he was different.
Different how?
If someone got one of his eyes poked out and his tongue torn out, he'd be different, but not like this. Albert was a different person.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
believe you, Doctor. So, can we take a look at Albert's cell?
I'd rather call it his room. Mr. Wessler lived in exceptional circumstances.
Thanks to the Wessler name, I guess.
Yes. Well, we try to make all of our patients stay as comfortable as possible, but Albert certainly enjoyed special favoritism.
I hope you don't
That
mind
bitch.
if we take a look around in there.
That's not going to bother anyone.